What if the full power of the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation was secretly turned against a presidential candidate, and the people who did it never faced justice? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's what the evidence shows. And tonight we're going to walk through every single piece of it. It was July 31st, 2016. Donald Trump had just secured the Republican nomination for president, and the country was locked in one of the most contentious election cycles in modern American history. That same day, deep inside FBI headquarters, a counterintelligence operation was born. They called it Crossfire Hurricane. The justification? A tip from Australian diplomat Alexander Downer, who claimed that a low-level Trump campaign volunteer named George Papadopoulos had bragged about Russia having dirt on Hillary Clinton. That's it. That was the foundation. An unverified tip from a foreign diplomat about a conversation at a bar in London. Now here's what you need to understand. Crossfire Hurricane wasn't a routine investigation. It was a full counterintelligence operation targeting a sitting presidential campaign, something that had never been done before in American history. The FBI opened files on 4 Trump campaign associates: Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn. And here's what makes this extraordinary. The FBI never gave the Trump campaign a defensive briefing. When they had intelligence suggesting a campaign might be infiltrated by a foreign power, the standard practice was to warn the campaign. They warned Clinton. They did not warn Trump. Instead, they sent in undercover operatives to infiltrate the campaign. While the FBI was opening its investigation, a different kind of operation was underway, one funded directly by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democratic National Committee. The Clinton campaign hired a firm called Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS then hired a former British intelligence officer named Christopher Steele, and Christopher Steele produced what became known as the Steele Dossier, a collection of memos alleging explosive and scandalous connections between Donald Trump and the Russian government. The dossier claimed Trump had been cultivated by Russia for years. It alleged financial entanglements, compromising behavior, and direct coordination between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin. The most salacious claim, which we won't repeat in detail, involved a hotel room in Moscow that was pure fiction. Investigators could not verify a single significant allegation in the dossier, but that didn't stop the FBI from using it. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. Christopher Steele's primary subsource, the actual person feeding him information, later told the FBI that the dossier was not serious intelligence. It was based on bar talk, rumors, and speculation. The FBI knew this. They knew the dossier was unreliable, and they used it anyway. The Steele dossier, funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign, compiled by a foreign national, based on unverified gossip, became a central pillar of the FBI's application to spy on the Trump campaign. To get permission to spy on an American citizen, the FBI needs a warrant from a special court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, known as the FISA Court. This court operates in secret. It hears only from the government, and it approved 4 separate surveillance warrants targeting Carter Page, a former Trump campaign advisor. But here's what the FBI told the court and what they left out. The FBI presented the Steele dossier as verified intelligence. They didn't tell the court it was paid opposition research funded by Clinton. They didn't tell the court that the dossier's primary subsource had already undermined its credibility. And in one of the most egregious acts of the entire scandal, an FBI attorney named Kevin Kleinsmith actually altered a government email to make it appear that Carter Page was not a CIA source, when in fact he was. Carter Page had been working with the CIA to report on Russian contacts. He was an asset, not a spy. Kleinsmith pleaded guilty. The Inspector General found 17 significant errors and omissions in the FISA warrant applications. 17. Each one of them benefited the government's case against Carter Page. None of them worked in his favor. The FISA court itself later ruled that the last two Carter Page warrants were not supported by probable cause. Carter Page was surveilled for nearly a year. His communications were monitored. His life was upended, and he was never charged with a single crime. So who was running this operation? Let's name names. James Comey, FBI Director. He personally approved the FISA applications. He briefed President Obama and his national security team. He was fired by President Trump in May 2017, and later admitted he had authorized the Flynn interview, the one that led to Flynn's prosecution, without following normal protocol. Andrew McCabe, Deputy FBI Director. He was found to have authorized leaks to the media about the Clinton Foundation investigation, and then lied to investigators about it 4 times. He was fired and referred for criminal prosecution, though ultimately not charged. Peter Strzok, FBI agent and lead investigator on Crossfire Hurricane. He and FBI lawyer Lisa Page exchanged more than 50,000 text messages. In one of those texts, after Trump won the election, Strzok wrote to Page, "We'll stop it." When asked by Congress what he meant, he refused to answer directly. He was fired in 2018. John Brennan, CIA director under Obama. He pushed the intelligence community assessment that Russia was interfering to help Trump, an assessment later scrutinized for its analytical standards. He had his security clearance revoked. And James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence. He admitted to leaking details of the dossier briefing to CNN. These were the architects of what the Durham report would later call a politically motivated investigation launched without adequate factual basis. In May of 2023, Special Counsel John Durham released his final report, more than 3 years of investigation into the origins of the Russia probe. The findings were damning. Durham concluded that the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation was opened with, quote, reckless disregard for established investigative guidelines. He found that the FBI should never have opened a full investigation, and that agents displayed confirmation bias, accepting evidence that supported their theory while dismissing evidence that contradicted it. Durham found that the Clinton campaign actively fed disinformation to the FBI, disinformation that the FBI accepted without appropriate skepticism. He found that the investigation violated the constitutional rights of American citizens. He found that the standard evidentiary threshold was not met, and yet almost no one has faced meaningful consequences. One guilty plea from Kevin Kleinsmith for altering an email. He received probation, no prison time. The people who authorized this operation, who lied to federal courts, who surveilled an American presidential campaign based on fabricated intelligence, most of them went on to book deals and cable news contracts. This story is not over. The documents are still being declassified. The full extent of what was done to Donald Trump, and by extension to the tens of millions of Americans who voted for him, is still coming to light. This is exactly the kind of story we cover here at America First Daily. Because if you don't know what happened, you can't stop it from happening again. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video with someone who thinks they already know the whole story. They don't, not yet. But now, maybe you do.